So on March 29th of next year, 2026, Disney will open its newest theme park, Disney Adventure World. And while this theme park is technically already like an existing theme park, and we all know it as a Walt Disney Studios, this will be the first ever complete relaunch and redesign of a Disney theme park, and marking a unique and pivotal moment in the history of the Parisian resort. Of course, a resort that we absolutely love. We just came back from a couple days there, but I think it's the first time we can really say that, even though it's like an existing park, I would call it like a new park. Really,
this is a unique situation, and I don't think there's ever really been anything quite like this in the history of Disney, because we've had like name changes and expansions that kind of change the identity of a park, from the inside out. But this is really more like an outside in rebranding. This is a very deliberate, intentional they really want to shed the previous identity of the park. They know exactly how people feel about the park. It's not a secret to anyone that the park has just a reputation for not being the best Disney parks. But it's complicated, because like the reason that this is a unique scenario is because like the park has been a unique circumstance since the beginning, because it was a contractually obligated park. They're due to the agreement between the Walt Disney Company and the French government, they needed to have a second park by 1996, and then this was delayed related to poor performance from the resort. But ultimately, they had an obligation, they had a deadline to meet. So Studios was really built because it had to be built, not because the market demanded it, which is, of course, not a great reason to build a theme park. So I really feel like from its inception, from the beginning, once they were at a point where they had to could pull the trigger on this park, they have never been happy with the conditions under which they were doing the park. And now I feel like they're doing it by choice. Like they're choosing, this is the second gate that they're choosing to build and wanting to build from the start, because the resort has grown into itself so nicely.
And a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Sean.
This is Alex.
And you're listening to another episode of Coaster Kings Radio. And today's episode, as mentioned, is all about Walt Disney Studios turning into Disney Adventure World. And also, we just came back from a little trip to Disneyland Paris. We were there for 4 full days. And this may actually have been our most intense trip to resort ever. We've obviously gone so many times, but usually it's like a 3-day affair, 2.5-day affair, 3.5 days, maybe if we're lucky. But this was like crazy 4-day. We got there a day early, went to the mall, and then like opened to closed it 4 days straight. But you know what? I couldn't get enough. I still feel like, I was kind of sad to leave. So we love this resort, and I think a lot of people know that. So once in a while, along comes a Disneyland Paris episode. But this one is special because, like Alex already said, and I already kind of hinted at, is that this park that we're going to talk about mostly today was really only ever built, not because Disney really wanted to build it, not because Disney ever really had any almost like love for it in the beginning. It's just because they were obligated to build a second gate. That was part of the agreement of building this whole resort area outside of Paris. And so once they finally bought the resort back from the banks, because for the longest time, the Walt Disney Company really had just, it was like an investment banking corporation that owned the assets, and Disney was just kind of like paying it back, but that wasn't profitable enough to really pay back. So eventually Disney, and I forgot the exact year, bought back the parks. And was it 2017?
It was 2017, 2018. It was right before the 30th anniversary.
Somewhere around there.
Before COVID.
So when they bought the resort from the banks, now they no longer pay crazy interest on on practically their resort. So now it just feels like it's wholly Disney, and they've made so many upgrades and so much money has been invested in just like cosmetic upgrades and food upgrades and entertainment upgrades. And the 30th anniversary was an absolute phenomenal celebration. I think it was a better product than the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World. So I feel like we're kind of coming like full circle with this whole resort. And I think right now it's in the best shape it's ever been in. And it's about to be in the best shape that it's ever been in, because not only is Walt Disney Studios turning into a whole new theme park that I think is worthy of a new name, it's also that Disney Village is completely getting redone, and we actually just walked through it, and there's some new stores already and some new storefronts. It looks great. And once that's all complete, and they're going to just keep adding attractions to now 2 really nice theme parks, I think we're kind of in that phase that Walt Disney World's been in for a couple of years now, where like everything feels kind of complete. And for Disney, that can easily take 30 years sometimes to get that with a theme park. And I think Disney Adventure World next year will be complete. So yeah.
Well, this is really kind of like what we brought up earlier. There's really never been an event like this in Disney. So it's kind of funny to watching it all unfold very curiously, because it's just not obvious to people watching like what the next move is going to be. Like when they announced the name and stuff, it was all, they're not shooting from the hip. Obviously, they've done a lot of market research. This whole resort has been a victim of market research struggles. So I think they've learned a lot over the years about how to tap into your audience and give your audience what they want. So it's really a unique time. This is the closest that we're going to get to a new Disney park this decade. There's been a new Disney park, at least one every decade since the 70s, sometimes 2 or 3. So it's really, it's kind of like a defining moment for the theme park chain, the theme park division of Disney, and certainly the most interesting thing of all the Disney projects that's happening, because it is so unusual for a park to undergo this kind of transition. Originally,
it's funny. You remember back in the day,
okay,
they had those, like when Six Flags started buying up all the premier park, Six Flags started buying up all the parks, and they did those commercials in Walibi Holland and Walibi Belgium, of course, at the commercials where it's like they made this song where it's like, oh, it's new and all alive. It's like witness the moment that Six Flags Holland or Walibi Holland turns into Six Flags Holland. And same with all those parks. I keep thinking of that moment when I wrote the episode notes, or when I'm thinking about Disney Adventure World, like changing the name, because I'm just thinking of like that weird era where Six Flags was just coming in and like purchasing a bunch of parks that no business purchasing, and they just changing the name and branding of it all. Even though, of course, this is like a high quality version of that, like a well calculated move, and not like some Six Flags move. I just can't help but think about that the whole time.
There's a lot of purpose, good purpose behind this. And what's funny is watching them do this, I know Disney World wishes that they could do something sort of akin to this for Hollywood Studios. We're going to talk about Disney's Hollywood Studios in Orlando a lot in this episode, because they're, aside from the castle parks, these are the 2 parks that have the most shared DNA of any of the Disney parks. In fact, it goes all the way back to its inception. Disney's MGM Studios, as it was called when it opened in 1989, was being developed at around the same time that the Euro Disney Resort was being developed, and contractual negotiations with MGM and with Michael Eisner and his sight set on filmmaking and behind the scenes themes and motifs being a vessel for a theme park experience, was going to shape not just Disney World and Orlando, but also Europe. And it was going to be one of many film and studio flavored experiences. Like, it was inevitable. Like, of course, like if you were doing something theme park related in the 90s, it was going to be related to movie studios. That's what Six Flags was doing. Warner Brothers, Universal Studios. It was kind of
Paramount
obvious.
Parks, everyone was kind of doing it, yeah.
And Epcot was going to be the outlier. We never got the Western version of Epcot in Anaheim, Westcott. That whole Epcot as a concept was maybe a little too experimental for any marketplace other than Orlando. So it was just as well that once we started looking at other Disney resorts as multi-park resorts, that Disney would skip right past the Epcot conversation. I don't think Epcot was ever a conversation for Euro Disney, but the studio park was a given. And contract negotiations for MGM Studios in Florida included conversations and plans about the Europe resort. It was inevitable because those projects, the huge Disney World expansion, turning Disney World into a 3-park resort and developing a European resort that would have multiple parks, that a studios park was coming to Europe with the same level of certainty that it was coming to Florida. But of course, we all know that conversations with MGM soured really quickly. There was a lot of issues related to licensing, and there was a lot of stepping on toes, toe stepping, because Disney wasn't supposed to do. It was like there was issues with, like, MGM had their own park in Vegas that was branded as a park, which was violated some aspect of their contract, but Disney was using MGM Studios branding on a facility that was also a functioning film studio where they were filming live projects and also doing animation projects. So there's a whole that's a whole episode right there about how that all flew apart just about as quickly as it came together. But the Euro Disney having an MGM park or having a studio park dates all the way back to when the MGM relationship with Disney was still healthy. But while Euro Disney was figuring out that they were not going to be able to support a second park right away, because, I mean, it was supposed to open within 4 years, which is a crazy turnaround time when you think about it. Like, any theme park, I mean, even the most successful theme park resorts right out of the gate, places like Shanghai Disneyland, they haven't even talked officially about a second gate yet. But Euro Disney was supposed to basically develop 2 gates simultaneously by having the Castle Park cranked out in 92 and then having a second gate in 96. But that was, of course, unrealistic, I think, even by the best case, like, scenarios, the best possible outcome models. And then, of course, Euro Disney fell way below those positive expectations. So amid the gestation of the resort and the growing pains of entering the European market, the park was not only rebranded into a more Disney-focused studio experience and less about involving other brands and third parties and things, but the park got a lot smaller. There was a much bigger. There's some great videos on YouTube about, like, the history of the studio park and like what this park was going to look like and represent. And it definitely was a much more Hollywood Studios akin size project. It was much bigger. I'm pretty sure that a film studio and, like, using it as a functioning studio was on the table. And then because they had so many issues with that as a product in the Orlando park, they scaled it way back. In fact, I think by the time they finally got the ball rolling on this resort, or they got this ball rolling on the second park, it was the Orlando park that it's based on was having its own identity crisis, its own struggles. And they were having such a hard time deciding what direction to go in with this park. I feel like all of the issues that they were having with the Orlando park, it really explains the problems that they were having doing the Europe park too. Because if the studio park in Orlando was really successful right away and made sense, and it was like an obvious roadmap of what to do, I think they would have had a lot more confidence in what they were doing with the Paris park. But because if you're following like the instructions and the instructions are making themselves up as they go along, you're not going to have like a very obvious or clean product at the other end. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I also think that in the earlier days, like you kind of mentioned, they were using third-party licensing. They weren't doing as much of their own IPs. They didn't have a catalog that they have now. This was before Star Wars was in their catalog officially. Like, this is before Adventures were a thing. So there was, the Pixar was still not even under their licensing yet. So all of this was, we're looking at Disney and Disney theme parks nowadays, and it's like, oh, there's so much to work with. But let's face it, there wasn't even that much to work with. You had a failing park concept that you were going to like introduce into Europe, but you couldn't even make it work in Orlando that well. I think in always possible, this park had an incredibly rough start. It was just, there was not a single way that this park was going to get off the ground and be successful right off the bat. And I think they also kind of knew it, and then they also kind of had to play it safe because, I mean, putting a lot of money into that, I just think they knew it wasn't gonna be saved. And I do want to touch upon one point real quick that you made a little bit earlier, is that they kind of skipped over the whole Epcot concept. And I want to mention that this is kind of becoming a kind of a full circle moment, because they're actually kind of going back a little bit into the Epcot concept with the transformation of this park. And it's almost as if we're leaving behind the whole studio idea, and we're kind of introducing some aspect of Epcot, which we'll discuss later in this episode. But it's funny. It feels like a full circle moment for me. But yeah, again, so this is much more than just renaming a park, which in the end of the day was kind of what really just happened in Orlando. It wasn't like they were really changing identity. It was just that like they kind of stripped the name of the branding that they had signed on with.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, one of these things, I guess I would just say that like the circumstances for all of this happening is a lot more positive. Disney's Hollywood Studios has been subject to a lot of conversations around its identity, not just because the whole purpose of the park being a functioning studio failed, because that's really, it's fine. It's nobody, like the studio theme park as a concept is so well loved and so broad that like nobody goes in there expecting something real. Like it's totally fine, even though the original studio parks were designed to be functioning in some way. Nobody expects that. Nobody cares. The problem is that Disney's Hollywood Studios was such a, like, as a rebranding, was born out of such a tumultuous era for Disney and difficult conversations with MGM. I feel like they're still not totally happy with that as branding. And there's some confusion to this day about the name of the park being Hollywood, but then not being totally committed to a theme of Hollywood, and also obviously
and not being in California,
Hollywood. So like that was,
well, I think you're right on that, because remember a couple of years ago they were sending out surveys with these name concepts, and they were doing like, oh, like Disney Cinematic Park,
Kaleidoscope Park was my favorite.
Kaleidoscope was my favorite.
Park.
Yeah, I was gonna say. And I always kind of thought that maybe when they were mentioning Disney Cinematic, it was really just a commentary on, or Cinemagic, whatever the name was they were coming with.
Yeah.
But I always kind of thought that came from Cinemagique, which is like the show that hopped around the Paris resort for a while. And I was convinced that, and I think in an alternate world, Disney Adventure World is only really a thing because it's marketing. I feel like it's a very much a 2025 name. Like it's search engine optimization friendly.
Yeah.
It has the name world in it, so it sounds grand. It's kind of like, well, Universal's coming to town. There's a lot of competition in Europe. The bigger the word, the better the marketing. And they've always been good at marketing. But in an alternate universe, I would have loved to have imagined the rebranding of this park having been like Disney Cinemagique or Parc Cinemagique, except for they're stepping away from the whole cinematic movie making thing.
Yeah.
So I guess Adventure World makes more sense for that.
If they weren't so eager on re-identifying this park, obviously there's a lot to love in the park and there's a lot to be proud of already. And there isn't like a complete recoiling away from the filmmaking theme, because what's there, some of the stuff that they've already done, is not only really beautiful and well done, but a renewed commitment to loving Hollywood and loving the idea of filmmaking and having filmmaking as the flavor of parts of this park. But with the name, and I think that's what gets people caught up with the name, is the name almost feels like so puzzling. It doesn't feel like, it feels almost too broad for a park that is still willingly, in some ways, embracing the studio filmmaking motif. But I think it's just so important for them, for marketing purposes, for people to understand that they are taking on a completely new identity, even though there's aspects of the park that will always pay homage to the original park purpose and pay homage to studio themed parks. And this park, whatever you call this park, whatever the park is going to be, it was always going to celebrate the premise of a studio themed amusement park in its own way, because it is such a good idea, because it is so likable. And even now, with what they've got, with where now at the entrance plaza is the only part of the park that is the studio backlot, and then you walk into world premiere and you're in this like liminal space between the film, which is in the movie theater, which is the gateway into the park on one side, and then the Walt Disney Studios themed motif of the entrance plaza and the ticketing area, which I just think is really clever and really cool. So I think,
yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll kind of talk about that a little bit more when we kind of discuss what Disney Adventure World really is and what's all inside of it and what the new story is. Yeah, like Alex said, first of all, it's always kind of been like that, where like you enter, the studio lot, and then you enter Studio One into the movie making, into the backlot, whatever, and then now it's gradually transformed into what it is now. And for Disney Adventure World, it's been updated just this spring. Is that you are now, like Alex said, entering the Walt Disney Studios, you're entering a studio lot, then you're entering the Hollywood fancy kind of glitzy and glamoury, kind of a premiere party, and then you enter the theater, and as you enter the theater, you step into what is now Adventure World, where all the, the franchises come alive that are on the posters. It's feel like that premise kind of continues on, except for it's been definitely beautified and it's a little bit more broad now. But I kind of love that. And I'm so happy that while they're stepping away completely from the studio theme, that the entrance plaza and that transition, which have always been amazing, and I've always said that some of my favorite entrances in the entire world is that entrance. At least that gets to live on.
Yeah. I think you were so right in your analysis of the name being very 2025. I don't think Adventure World is like anybody's first choice, but it's also just a really intelligent choice. And like things for search engine optimization, they could never have gotten away with naming the park Disney Cinemagic Park, even though it's such a good name, because there have already been too many things in the resort that were called Cinemagique, whether it's like show venues or like the name of the actual show that opened with studios in 2002. It was like,
and let's face it, when you Google Walt Disney Studios, you're getting the Burbank offices.
Yeah.
Like, you're not getting a theme park in Paris, despite that being, almost 6 million annual attendance figure theme park, third highest in Europe. It's not actually what the name comes from, something that is then also something else. So, and this day and age, and I just see the same thing with like when Cedar Fair adds roller coasters and throws in names like Red Terra and Alpen Fury, and all that stuff is manufactured, because the moment you type it into Google, it's the only thing that pops up is your brand, is your product. And that's why Disney Adventure World is and I'm not actually that against the name. I've warmed up to it quite a bit.
It's better than Epic Universe, man. I will never,
I agree.
I will never totally be on board with Universal Epic Universe. Let it be known.
I'll be honest with you, I didn't even think of that. That next time anyone complains about Disney Adventure World being a name, I'm going to be like, oh, good afternoon.
Nobody can tell me that Disney Adventure World is a dumber name than Universal Epic Universe. But that's another situation of like, well, there was a name that they wanted. There was names that made sense. There were names that sounded nice. And then there was like the smart name, the name that was probably nobody's first choice, but it was like a strategic option. And Disneyland Paris has the added challenge of being the multilingual resort. And a lot of things in that resort have been named multiple names, or like when attractions get rebranded, they slowly there's a slow morphing metamorphosis from like a very French, like Space Mountain, for example, opening as first it was Discovery Mountain, and then they were like, okay, well, we should name it Space Mountain because that's really iconic. But then they're like, well, the name needs to have a subtitle so that it's like really unique to the ride. But then the subtitle was, the Space Mountain de la Terre à la Lune, and it's like very French and specific, and it's like not going to make sense to a lot of international tourists. So when they renamed the ride again, they're like, it's just going to be Space Mountain Mission 2. It's in English.
Which, if you say it in French, it's still like Mission 2 is like spelled the same way. So I feel like that worked out.
So there's a lot of Disneyland Paris doesn't get a lot of credit for the science that behind naming something that's going to make sense to people who speak a variety of languages, or maybe people who just speak one language and are going to Paris.
Disneyland Paris has always been in a unique situation where they're surrounded by like 6-7 major languages within like a few hours driving, and their attendance is like that too. I mean, they used to make every announcement in like 5 languages, and it's still one of those things where like it's the only resort in the world where there is so many people that don't speak each other languages in one spot, and then using the English and French code switching that's a uniquely Disneyland Paris thing. You're not going to go to Japan or China or Hong Kong and find there's code switching. It's like it's either or. And of course, Hong Kong does a better job balancing the English aspect because it's Hong Kong. But Paris, in that sense, is a very unique resort. Like you said, like there is just a different drive behind that kind of stuff, like names, storytelling.
Yeah.
But they do it so well. But yeah, I think we should dive into kind of our points here that we're going to make about what the park, how this is different than most rebrandings. We've obviously really already talked about it quite a bit, but just kind of bit for bit, we've seen that Disney has renamed parks before. It's not the first time. Like we said, MGM Studios have become Hollywood Studios. We've seen small name changes, like Disney's California Adventure is being Disney California Adventure, or
that
Epcot having capital letters. I still understand because I feel like Disney's California Adventure sounds better. And then even Euro Disney, or Disneyland Paris is not new to that because it opened as Euro Disney Resort, Euro Disneyland, and that did not stick with the audience. Even though I, as a kid, remember being like Euro Disney, like that's we called it. But for the Parisians, it's like, well, you're building a park in Paris in our land, and you're gonna just call it Euro Disney. Like, and of course, I feel like maybe that's also kind of like a late or early '90s, early 2000s kind of the whole Euro thing. But I don't think Europeans themselves really. It has kind of to do with European Union rebuilding, and then the euro came out. Like, it was the word euro was thrown around a lot in the beginning of the resort all over Europe, but I don't think that was really like the name. I'm glad they changed it. Disneyland Paris is just a better name, and it respects the French a lot more, and they need to be respected because otherwise,
and it's just a prettier name. Like, Euro Disney is sounds very utilitarian. It's very business.
Especially in some language. Euro Disney, that sounds hard. Disneyland Paris sounds cuter, like in my language. So it's stuff like that where I'm like, okay, it makes sense to change that over. But again, these were all just name changes. Not like Disneyland Paris saw a single change within the park. I mean, still the emblems say Euro Disney Roro. Like it's not like they saw a single change except for the name of the park.
And a lot of these, it was like out of necessity. It was almost like an emergency name change. Aside from Disney California Adventure, which is just kind of, I still don't understand why. Maybe they just felt like when they redid the logo for the park, they felt like the logo looked better without an apostrophe S or something. I'm sure it's something like very, very simple. Yeah. But Hollywood Studios and Disneyland Paris were like these emergency rebrandings of the resort because of some sort of external force. So Disney Adventure World, for better or for worse, at least the name and the rebranding is all born out of intent and desire and interest and fulfillment and all of these like very positive things, instead of a name being like this rush to release, like, oh, like what we're currently calling the park is like a huge mistake. Like, it's really not working. Obviously, Walt Disney Studios as the name of a park isn't exactly working, but it's not dire. Like, they've been able to sit on that name for almost 25 years and it's been fine. It's just now that have a bit more intent with everything that they're doing. I think they're just taking it back. They're taking back the park and the identity, and they're really choosing what they would like for the park and not choosing what is kind of predisposed for the park, what's expected for the park.
Yeah, so like in a way, the biggest thing here is that it's a complete rebranding of a Disney park. So they're retiring the whole studio theme in favor of a completely new aesthetic and concept, and it really is a really solid aesthetic that they're going with. And even the bits of the park that are remaining, which is only about 10% of the park, is actually staying the same. And this is a multi-year transformation. So some of these parts have already been converted. But you can kind of sense that even what's left has been adapted to that new aesthetic. Even the parts of World Premiere Plaza that were the kind of the studio feel, they've been getting gardens and landscaping and really nice flooring and all sorts of cool lights and string lights and little terraces, and they're really adapting it to be more of like a glitzy Hollywood thing, where the show buildings are kind of are more meant to be big statement pieces than they are to be like active working movie theater, like movie making. And that's kind of exciting. And according to Disney, actually, the rebranding of this park is so significant that 90% of this park has been reimagined, according to Disney. So it's practically like a complete redo of a park using the bones of a previous park. And that's, I think, what really sets this apart from anything else, because it's just like, it's a complete change in direction. The whole studio thing, it doesn't exist anymore, except for just being just like a really small section of the park, almost like just the entrance of the park. And everything else, even if it was previously studio themed, has been changed into World Premiere Plaza, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think when you look at a park map from opening year of this park, I think it makes a little more sense to the unfamiliar listener about why you could justify calling this a different park than what it opened as. Because if you look at what the park opened with, you basically have the entrance plaza and like the little animation corner and like the show venues, and that's it. Like that's all that will be left of the 2002 era of this park, once all of the transformation is complete, because there just really wasn't that much there. It was always kind of a blank canvas, and one that they did their best to fill in some of the gaps that like the other park was missing. But it always just felt like a park that was just doing whatever they felt like they couldn't really do in the Castle Park and get away with it. Things like Toy Story and Ratatouille and like some of these larger than life, bright attraction concepts and stuff. But yeah, so in the
past, I feel like the concept of these parks, of course, were that the whole thing was one theme, which all the studio parks kind of always kind of said they did that, and then inevitably the whole studio thing doesn't really work out, because are you really gonna just theme the entire thing to like big ugly shows, like sound stages? Not really. So at Disney Adventure World, this kind of aims to be a park with really large lands instead, almost like a classic kind of park idea. I'm kind of what we're seeing with like what Hollywood Studios are slowly turning into. What most parks are turning into is having like lands instead of having attractions. And so what they're calling these now, or they're calling them worlds, which I find interesting that they're putting worlds inside Adventure World, and they have zones. I don't know why they are so focused on, I get what like World of Frozen, and I get that like Galaxy's Edge would have been a world, but for me that's always going to be like a theme park land. But they're really, really focused on having worlds, and we'll discuss these more in just a tiny bit. But there you have 3 worlds and 2 zones that make up Adventure World. So if world isn't the buzzword of the day, then it's going to be later. Like they're going to say the word world a lot, just so you're ready for that. And the original park was roughly about 250,000 square meters. Wait, sorry, I'm going to rewind. That's incorrect. Sorry.
The original park was like
the expansion is about, the expansion is, let's see.
So the expansion is going to be
save me.
250,000 square meters, which is a lot. I know
But just okay, that's what it was.
Yeah,
It's more than double the size
yeah.
of Toy Story Land and Galaxy's Edge at Disney Hollywood
The
Studios.
park currently include like everything that is currently an accessible area, a ride, or a backstage area directly contributing to this park is less than 200,000 square meters. So when the new expansion comes in, the whole park will be it'll be like 475,000 square meters when it's done. So the people,
which will make this the largest single expansion of a Disney theme park in Disney history.
The size of this expansion eclipses by far the size that the park was when the park opened. Which is funny because Hollywood Studios did that also when they were doing their Star Wars Toy Story Land expansion. That was such a big expansion for that park at the time that it was quite big compared to what the park was when it actually opened. Both of these little studio parks were not very big when they opened, but the one in Florida kind of had a bit more straightforward trajectory and had a lot more success and a lot more going for it early on.
And then another way in which you can really sense it, it's a completely brand new theme park, is the fact that for the first time since 1992, they have composed a new musical audio score for the resort, specifically for Disney Adventure World. This is composed by a famous French composer, Philippe Rombi, and it's been recorded at the famous Abbey Road Studios, which the original score created for the park in 1992 was recorded, and it's the first time they recorded another Disneyland Paris score there since. So that's honestly really cool. It's going to be a 45-minute track that is going to be played on Adventure Way around Adventure Bay, and it's going to kind of tie together the whole park because, as we'll discuss shortly, pretty much every land plugs into Adventure Way. So it's like the new main street, except for instead of it being themed to a street, it's just going to be lush, beautiful Parisian-style gardens. I just love what they went with here. It's almost like, it's like a tip of my tongue. It's kind of like a feeling. Like you have your little town, you have your, your little worlds that connect to Main Street and your castle, like all the classic stuff right next door. But then you have this, and it's going to be like, tranquil. It's going to be gardens, and everything's going to plug into like a really nice, cohesive, aesthetic garden. That's like, God, you could make me happier if you tried. I love the idea of that.
I think Adventure Way is going to make a nice hub world. It'll be a great palate cleanser to help keep the very dramatically different tones and art styles of the different worlds from,
in a way,
creeping into each other too much.
It's a nice version of Celestial Park because unlike Celestial Park, the Parisian resort is incredibly good about the fine details, and it's incredibly good about flooring and gardening. And even though it's not going to have like maybe the fountain aspect, well, it's going to have a giant lake, of course, but it's going to have the quality in the ironwork and in the scaffolding and in the landscaping, and it's, again, like I'm never gonna not say it, and in the flooring, because Disneyland Paris and Walt Disney Studios such as Adventure World have just incredible embellishments, and the flooring, it's all so high quality. It's like, but that's what the European audience wants. Like, if you cannot present them a concrete floor, they're going to go crazy. And it's not even a joke, because it's just like there's so much competition in the European market and such nice theme parks. And they've finally gotten to the point where there's, I think, maybe like a very tiny slab of asphalt left. And then a part of the park is going to be closed once Adventure World opens. It's that little walkway that's currently connecting Tower of Terror and Toy Story Playland. That's gonna get closed off. That's part of that was actually only added to connect these parts. It used to be where the tram ran. So that's actually incredibly refreshing. So anyway, so it kind of just makes you think, like you said, about as a hub world. Epic Universe loves to use Celestial Park as a hub world. Having Adventure Way as a hub world is gonna be like a really, I think, actually garden.
It's ironic because Universal really claimed to set out and do Celestial Park as like an area, but then as an area, it really stumbles with its having an identity and feeling fleshed out. Adventure Way is not even making very many claims about its identity or the purpose that it serves, and somehow it will have a nicer identity and a better purpose. It will be more successful.
Firework drone show.
Sometimes it's like, sometimes less is more. Like, but Adventure Way and Adventure Bay will see much more success in achieving the goal of their spaces than Celestial Park will, because they set these unnecessarily high expectations for Celestial Park and then completely failed at bringing that area of the resort into being like a full, like a truly like storytelling, fully fleshed out experience. Adventure Way is just going to be nice, and it's going to be pretty, and that's exactly the point, and it's exactly what it wants to be and needs to be.
100%. And then moving on a little bit into discussing what Disney Adventure World will host. Before we do that, there's a couple quick numbers here. What Disney Adventure World will bring to the table this year, or in a few months, is that despite the numbers, there's going to be 3 new rides. There's going to be 14 new food and beverage locations. There's going to be 1 new daytime water pageant, a new nighttime spectacular lake show, 1 new walkthrough meet and greet, and I separate that from the entertainment and other meet and greets because it's kind of like a separate attraction that they're doing. And of course, like Alex already mentioned, the park is currently less than 200,000 square meters, and the expansion will bring it to about 400,000. So it's going to really just double.
And
the
then
parks.
Lion King will bring it up to double. 450,000. Like Lion King. This is, some of these numbers don't even include Lion King, which Lion King is still very much part of the
park
identity.
Is doubling just when the gates opens on March 29th, but then there's going to be 2 more lands getting added to the park. One of which will be short term and is going to be one of the largest things they've ever done for the resort. In fact, Disney keeps throwing out there it's one of the largest rides at the resort. It's going to be incredible. We'll round the episode. We'll finish the episode with what's to come for Adventure World. But what's new for Adventure World is just the 3 worlds and the 2 zone thing they're doing. So the 3 worlds are World of Frozen, Adventure Campus, and Worlds of Pixar. And then the 2 zones are World Premiere Plaza and Adventure Way. And that includes Adventure Bay because that sits inside of Adventure Way. Does that make sense? Adventure Way goes around the entire loop around the lake, or the bay, I should say. So we're going to discuss each of these 5 zones or lands, as I would like to call them. But we're going to use the verbiage that Disney has created so imaginatively. And so we're starting with the World of Frozen. That's like the big new highlight. And this area is going to sit along Adventure Way itself at the end of Adventure Bay. So if you imagine almost like a giant lasso where in the loop of the lasso is the lake. If you look straight ahead at the very end of the park, you can already see it just walking into the park. There is the World of Frozen. And this is going to sit alongside the Adventure Way, as in a lot of the buildings that we know from the Hong Kong installation are going to be lined up along the actual walkway instead of it just being a straight-in kind of dead-end land. And then while the area is reminiscent of the Hong Kong installation, the design and story are both a bit different. So the story of this land is actually that it's going to be taking place during the Snowflower Festival. And that's because the winter weather in Paris is so dreadful that doing the whole summer snow day thing is only going to work for a few weeks out of the year. Like Orlando does that. Is like there's the story, the ride. Even the land, of course, is not in a frozen land. The ride Frozen Ever After in Orlando uses that same story. Oh, summer snow day. And then the actual land in Hong Kong is also summer snow day. But that's because Orlando and Hong Kong are always super hot. You can wear shorts every day of the year. But Paris only has maybe like 3 months of the year where it's really hot. And then 3 months of the year where it's really, really cold, if not longer. And we spend more time there being bundled up in 4 layers on our visits than we are there when we're just wearing shorts. So I'm actually kind of happy to change that. And I hadn't even thought about it until I was reading up on it and I was watching videos on it, and like they were doing construction tours and they were discussing how there's this flower that they use throughout the frozen lands, and it's the snowflower. And so that's the reason that it's on all the embellishments and it's going to be heavily used in this particular land. It's because they're all there to celebrate the Snowflower Festival, and that this way the story makes sense the entire year through. And of course, because it is in Paris, the wording of the ride is going to reflect that name, but also it's going to be half in French, half in English. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to hearing the dialogue. I know some characters will be only speaking French and some characters will only speak English. I can't remember who says what, but that's going to be pretty exciting. And then the area will be home to 3 attractions, really, I would say. An attraction not as like necessarily rides. There's one major ride that's Frozen Ever After. We're going to get a copy of Hong Kong here. So the bigger version with a little airtime hill to drop. Of course, all the updated technologies, all the newest animatronic, newest lighting, whatever they have invented since opening Hong Kong's. And then some of that stuff is also now coming to Epcot because Epcot's getting their ride upgraded with new animatronics. Then there is something that's unique for this park, and that is the Royal Encounter with Anna and Elsa. And that is like a walk-through meet and greet where we actually go through the Arendelle Castle. And there's all these rooms and hallways and things to explore, which are going to be partial queue, really. And then you meet up with Anna and Elsa, and this whole land takes place between the first and second movie, which may explain the outfits. I'm not a Frozen fan, personally. I'm looking at Alex on the screen because they really have been doing all the marketing where she's in that white outfit, you know, and like the white and her hair is loose. She's like, that's what they're going with. I thought it was like movie 2.
So that takes, anyway, Disneyland Paris has always been big fans. Like, they've been always big on embracing Frozen 2. Frozen 2, I think, did really well in France. Because when we were there in 2020, the Frozen 2 hysteria was so over the top. They were doing Main Street processionals with Frozen 2 music every 25
every 20 minutes. it was like all day long. You heard, whatever it was.
And then like they had the posters for the 30th anniversary, and it was the first time I'd ever seen media that had Anna and Elsa's like new outfits and new looks that like reflected the end of the second movie. They were almost like spoilers because they had Anna like in her outfit from where she was coronated as queen, and Elsa with her hair down and her white dress. So we get like, I like to think we get these much happier versions of Anna and Elsa, the versions of themselves that take place after the events of the second film, instead of getting like the very stressed out and and dejected Queen Elsa version from the first movie. So that's going to make it a very unique Frozen experience overall. There's a lot of unique Frozen good things happening here.
I mean, like, speaking of good vibes, by the way, one final attraction I want to mention that's also unique to this resort is that they're actually doing a daytime show that's just Frozen, and it's going to be called the Celebration in Arendelle. And there is a part of the waterways of Disney Adventure World that are not part of Adventure Bay. They're like off. That's where like the kind of like the maintenance canal starts, but there's a really wide waterway there, and that's almost going to serve like a little mini lake that's just part of the world of Frozen. And they're going to have several times a day, they're going to have like a show on the water there with 3 themed barges and characters and fountains that are going to be a specific show written just for this world of Frozen. And I'm kind of excited for that because I was kind of sad that we didn't get the roller coaster. While the roller coaster would have made very little sense at this resort, because this resort is really like a coaster resort. They've got big, badass coasters, unlike Hong Kong. While I enjoy Hong Kong's coasters, they're not spectacular.
Except for Grizzly. Grizzly is spectacular.
Except for Grizzly Gulch, yeah.
The others are...
What I'm trying to get at is we didn't get the coaster, but we did get the really big walkthrough. The land itself, when you look at it, because you can see it already from walking around the park and from some of the rides, is you can really sense that it's a much grander area. Like, the area is stretched out. It's not as compact as Hong Kong's, and not having the waterways that are part of the land and not just on the Adventure Bay side of the walkway, and having then a daytime show there, I think will be really nice. Like, it's gonna be, it feels roomier and larger, and I'm glad that they're getting like a big version of this land despite not getting the little roller coaster. That makes sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll have Alex continue with some of the shopping and dining of the area.
Yeah, we have... So shopping and dining is fairly similar to the Hong Kong setup. Things have some slightly different names, and I think the restaurant got expanded. You have the Nordic Crowns Tavern, the Arendelle Boutique, the Fjord View Shop, which has the new... the little interactive adoptable troll doll. It's like a little personal audio animatronic that you carry around like a purse. It looks very cute.
And it interacts with all these little different things in the land. So if you say you were to walk close by like a window shop, and this is of course very, very wand coded from Harry Potter, but you know, say that something happens in the window, or like the little troll sees something and will mention, like, there will be little unlocking audio bits and features that are just because of triggers in the land.
Yeah.
And they designed this for this park. And it's also why we get the fjord view shot, because in Hong Kong, this is like a little sitting area and like a stroller parking literally by the water. Here it's going to be like a little shop that you can go into and of course get your little troll, which is very exciting. I think it's a fun little thing to do because I don't think they've really done interactive stuff like that at Disneyland Paris really at all, because we don't have like a Star Wars land. So it's going to be fun because I think this park really needs it. And the audience in Paris is so driven by meet and greets and so driven by entertainment that this is like the perfect little thing to add among what else is going to talk about next.
Yeah. And then I think the other big thing that a lot of people have seen already and has been like going viral is the walk around Olaf character that looks so good. It is like peak robotic art form and function happening. His little mannerisms and stuff. It's just like unbelievable what they are accomplishing with this guy. He's making his debut in Paris and will also be coming to Hong Kong. And then like the whole area really serves a substantial purpose in the identity of Adventure World, not just because it's like the biggest thing that opens with the Adventure World rebranding, but it serves as the backdrop. The facade for Frozen is enormous because it is really the whole, it's really like the berm for the general overall experience. This is their Cinderella's castle or Sleeping Beauty castle. It is the large encompassing like area that your eye takes your field of vision in. It like your eye follows it all the way to the back and then around for the whole park. So it's really a lot of the identity of this park and like the feel of Adventure Way is lending itself to these style choices and to the motif and the tone of Arendelle, and then like the mountain in the background and Elsa's ice palace, the forced perspective little ice palace in the distance.
And then the next land that we're going to talk about is an existing collection of attractions that they've all turned into one giant land. So Worlds of Pixar is now practically like a fourth of the park size-wise. It features 7 attractions, and they over the years just kind of kept adding on franchises from Pixar because it was so successful, including in Europe. And as they just needed to flesh out the Walt Disney Studios park, those were like the franchises that just made the most sense to add. And so now there's a really fun collection of little lands and rides that are all Pixar and are all in the same area. And so they kind of got creative with that and just called it Worlds of Pixar instead and made it one giant area. And I'm a big fan of that concept. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's one of like, and they're marketing that as like one of the big 3 worlds. And I think that's actually great because Pixar has a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this is a lot of this at this point. That's Frozen is like the biggest focal point as far as like new major things that are happening right now. Obviously, Adventure Way is also a big tentpole for the expansion. But as far as like what the park is composed of at this point, going into the Adventure World area, you have Worlds of Pixar and its 7 rides. Cars Road Trip, which is an abridged, retconned version of the Studio Tram Tour, which opened with the park. The Studio Tram Tour was not a success, I think, by any measure. It was as far as Studio Tram Tour themed rides go, whether it's a real studio tour or a pretend studio tour, this one probably ranks at the bottom of attempts at this concept. So when it was lopped off by 2/3 and turned into a Cars ride, I don't think anybody was too bothered by that, especially because we get to keep Catastrophe Canyon for a little bit longer, which if you're a fan of Disney's Hollywood Studios, the MGM Studios tram tour, Catastrophe Canyon was a great Universal Studios-esque like tram stop that employed a bunch of special effects and things. And it's nice. It works. Like, it's a cute ride. It's temporary. The park's kind of been sort of not so much transparent, but it hasn't really. They're not afraid to admit that, like, this is an expansion pad for a future world. So it's not going to be a part of the identity of Worlds of Pixar forever, but it works really well for now because it's a big, high capacity attraction. Little kids really like it.
And it kind of works, it's something different. Like Alex said, it's high capacity. It has that Catastrophe Canyon thing where it's like the big oil rig, on the canyon getting stuck and then exploding, and all the water from the flash flood. It's like all of Universal Studios Hollywood's original effects in one.
Yeah, pretty much.
And and that is enough. That's like pretty much all you do, except for a couple of kind of basic scenery pieces. But I think, given the scope of literally everything else in this park, and this park, I don't even know if we really mentioned it, it's like, imagine like a decent sized Disney park, but then every single thing they did is like a small version of it. So it's very quaint. You have like a bunch of small rides. And having then a smaller version of Studio Tour just being part of World of Pixar, I personally like it. I don't need it to go away anytime soon. It's just a cute thing to do. Like, if you don't expect, I don't know what you would expect from a ride called Cars Road Trip, but if you don't expect much,
I don't think it's got another 5 to 10 years easy. I think it's just easy. It's an easy ride. And then the other Cars ride, the little Zamperla flat ride at the front of the Pixar area. It always makes me think of Sven, because Sven hates that there's 2 Cars rides in this area, but they're on opposite ends of the area. Yeah. And I was like, don't worry, Sven, that problem will solve itself before too long, because Road Trip is very temporary. But the permanent Cars ride is very cute and has a really nice presence to it, even though the attraction itself is just a small little flat ride. And then you have, I lost my place. Where were we?
Well, yeah, you're at the Ratatouille.
Right. Okay,
Ratatouille 11.
We're jumping all over the place. That's okay. Are these in alphabetical order? No, they're not.
No, I just went to the land in my head. But
that's okay.
But I put the two cars right together because it'd be weird to be like Cars Road Trip, but then like blah blah blah.
You're
blah.
right.
And then, like,
that's fair.
Cars.
I'm not judging.
Yeah.
Then you have Ratatouille and its own little mini lands. There's like 4 mini lands in this Worlds of Pixar. You have Ratatouille and Toy Story, which are like pretty fleshed out individual areas, and then you have the front of the area, which is Cars and Finding Nemo, and then the back of the area, which is Cars again for now. But the Ratatouille area is really cute. Obviously, we got like our own version of it in Orlando, which isn't as nice, but that's Orlando for you. And then we have our beloved Crush's Coaster, the Finding Nemo Mauer Spinner, where you ride on the back of a turtle shell through the East Australian Current, and it's really fun. And people give it a lot of crap for being low capacity, when really I don't think it's that low of capacity. I think people just really like it a lot, and everybody wants to ride it.
I mean, I haven't met anyone that doesn't just love Crush's Coaster. Like, I think it's one of those things, like, they were originally planning on adding 2 sides, like, mirrored. And typical, like, budget cut, didn't think it needed the capacity, the park wasn't very successful, blah, 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 right? Now we're here, how many years later? Almost 20 years later, because time flies. And now we're looking at Crush's Coaster as in, like, everyone wants to do it. Everyone road drops it. Everyone runs there. I love it. Everyone loves it. It's super cute. It's like dark ride meets like fast spinning coaster. Unique for Disney, great for families, but also kind of thrilling because it's Paris. I don't know. I think Crush's Coaster is an e-ticket. Like, I call it an e-ticket.
Totally. I love it. I love that ride. And then you have the Toy Story Land, which is the same basic roster as the Toy Story lands in Hong Kong Disney.
Well, this one's called Toy Story Playland.
This one's called Toy Story Playland. Yeah, you're right.
This is a cute name.
Which I forget why they did that, but for whatever reason, that was very important for them to differentiate that it was Toy Story Playland, whereas Hong Kong, Shanghai, and Orlando just have Toy Story Land. And Toy Story Playland is a small themed area. It's like a miniature version of what we have in Orlando with 3 flat rides. The Toy Soldier Parachute Drop, the Slinky Dog Zigzag, and RC Racer, which also was originally going to have 2, and then for budget cut reasons, they just built 1, which honestly is probably fine. And the Worlds of
Pixar is of course home to a couple restaurants and shopping. I'll just drop the names here real quick. We've got Bistro Chez Rémy, which is the restaurant themed to the movie restaurant. So in the movie, you know, the little rat, Ratatouille and his friends, or Remy, like they have a little restaurant, right? And this restaurant, of course, is rat size. Everything you do inside, you're sitting in like giant plates and baskets and whatnot. And then the ride in or Paris ends with a glass window where you like ride into the restaurant, right? So the final scene on the Ratatouille ride for both of them is you go to Remy's restaurant and then you turn a corner and then you park. Well, in Orlando, you park into a wall, really, you leave. But then in Paris, you park in the restaurant and you get out in the restaurant. And even though you're like separated by a glass wall, that scene carries into the restaurant, like from the ride into the exit station.
It's so
to the
brilliant,
like,
honestly.
It's really cool.
It also
it's
plays
great.
nicely off of Toy Story Land, where like your miniature, the restaurant, and right in between the ride and Toy Story Land.
And your miniature on Crush too. I mean, you're riding on a turtle's back, babe. Like, you know. Anyway, so I guess you're just small everywhere. So that's a great restaurant. In fact, we actually just ate there for the first time last week, and the day after they changed the menu. But what we ate was amazing.
Love it there.
They've got a couple of food festival booths there that are open year round. They just kind of rotate whatever festival they're doing. Around Christmas, it's just the best stuff. It's the whole Glühwein. It's just, you know, you're in this Parisian street because it is a really nice Parisian themed area. And so, you know, that's I always kind of enjoy that atmosphere. A couple of food trucks, which really is the Paris thing, especially really only at this park. They love kind of doing different kinds of food trucks. So we've got two in the area. One is themed to an Airstreamer that's over by between Crush's Coaster and like the Inside Out meet and greet area. And then you have like an actual food truck over by Cars Road Trip, which I guess food truck road trip adds up. For stores, and a lot going on, we have got Chez Marion, which is a souvenir shop themed to just Parisian souvenirs and thematic stuff. And then the Toy Story Playland Boutique, which it seemed like a barrel of monkeys. I didn't know what it was until Alex told me what it was like a couple years ago. It's like an American toy, I guess. Or like a bunch of monkeys in a barrel and you connect them all together, right? Like a string, is that correct?
No,
anyway, that's that store. It's kind of basic, but
if you know, you know.
Maybe I was wrong. Sorry. Next up is the Adventure Campus. Of course, the two major rides at Adventure Campus, which this is a re-themed land. No, actually, they pretty much leveled the whole damn land, and the only thing they kept was the track for Rock and Roller Coaster. So this is where the previous original backlot of the opening year was. Again, this is where Disney comes in and says 90% of the park is completely redone because this, again, was pretty much leveled to the ground and completely rebuilt. So two of the rides there. One is Spider-Man Web Adventure, which we know from California. Adventure 2, this opened in 2022 at Disneyland Paris. And Adventure Assemble Flight Force is the reimagined Rock and Roller Coaster layout launch coaster. We personally love it. It's themed to... you go in on a mission to destroy some Korean missiles that are headed towards Earth. And Captain Marvel and Tony Stark, Mr. Iron Man, are meeting up with you. And you're in this hypersonic. They need you to distract the missiles because they're tracking you. And then they're going to blow them up. And I personally think it's a great ride. It runs better than the American version of Rock and Roller Coaster. I like the thematic aspect of it now. They added some more elements to it. They use this really clever screen where, because of the ride's layout, you go by it like 3 different times. But every time, of course, it displays something else. I personally think it's a great ride. I think it's a cool fit for Adventure Campus. But there's actually a lot more to this area that makes it my favorite, and that's including some of the details they added. Like the flooring is so nice. The restaurants are well balanced. There's a lot of food, a lot of entertainment going on. It just feels much more alive and cohesive than the California one, in my opinion.
It feels more substantial because, like, I feel like the Tavan collection, the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, because it was a reskin of Tower of Terror. It's a great ride, but it doesn't feel like it's part of the area in the same way that the two Avengers Campus rides in Paris feel like they're in the area. But in addition to the two e-ticket rides, you have quite a bit of entertainment. There's the Hero Training Center. There's the Doctor Strange Mystery of the Mystics live entertainment sequence. There's a lot of like LARPing kind of entertainment. It's sort of like, you know, Galaxy's Edge sort of thing, where you have the characters walking around, little show processional sequences and things, heroic welcome, superheroes on patrol, you know, that whole thing. And then lots of dining and shopping. Stark Factory is a brand new restaurant that they built fast casual pizza and things. The Pim Kitchen Buffet replaced the Backlot restaurant. That building is still kind of basically the same shape, but it looks a lot better now, even though it's not super changed. Then there's the Super Diner that is behind Web Slingers, which is actually pretty good, and that little rotunda that's going to make a lot more sense.
Yeah,
it's going
right
to,
now it feels weird because it feels like, why is there an entire street of Adventure Campus that leads to nothing?
Yeah.
Which is like the Walt Disney Studios legacy. But in a few months, that's going to be a really prominent entrance to the area where you're going to have the Super Diner leading you, with a couple of other small food establishments leading you into Adventure Campus.
Yeah. And all the food's actually really good at Adventures Campus because they've got like 5 different places to eat at the food trucks
6,
and stuff.
Actually.
And then the shop is the Avengers Campus Boutique, which is the exit shop for Web Slingers. So I think it's a great, well-rounded area and a very exciting. It's like the first real step into the new park identity that we got. Because it was
100%.
So it's already 3 years old, but it's like very important flag in the sand for like, this is the beginning of the new era. This is before we even had a new name. This is before we had finalized projects. This is back when we were getting Star Wars. This was way before Lion King was on the table. Is when we got this area, and so really,
and this area is really, really important for them because I think it was kind of a slam dunk. Because when it opened, I mean, the vibe was immaculate. It just felt like they did it right. The Europeans loved it. They would keep it open 2 hours after everything else in the park.
Yeah,
it was just,
it changed everything.
The vibes were good.
It was the 20th anniversary of studios, and it was like the new identity was being born. It was the beginning.
And you can really tell how important this is because when you load anything Adventure World, like on the Disneyland Paris app, there's like a little button for like, to explore Adventure World. And you will just see that there really is this, Adventure Campus, Worlds of Pixar, Worlds of Frozen. That's all they really care to market. The 3 stars, like the logo is a star, right? And it really just focuses on 3 points. 1 point is Pixar, 1 point is, again, Adventure Campus, the other one is Frozen. And I'm kind of happy for them because they really are kind of quite large established worlds because Adventure Campus is quite large. World of Pixar is probably the same size. And then World of Frozen is going to be quite big. So it's kind of nice that they have actual big developed areas, which historically was not a thing for this park. It was just a loose theme with a bunch of rides thrown on it. So it's kind of exciting that transformation is already complete despite the park not being open. And so, having said that, the other 2 areas of the park that they call zones, which I think could have just been marked as worlds, especially World Premiere Plaza. I think World Premiere Plaza could have been marked as a world. It's so substantial. This is, I think, this is where we're gonna discuss a little bit later, but this is where people maybe not realize why this resort is very different from the other resorts, because entertainment derives this resort. And if you're a big coast enthusiast and listen to the podcast for some reason, or you're just a general like dark ride enthusiast, you may not really understand the cultural differences that are between this resort and all the other resorts. And we can say like, Disney's always done shows and entertainment, and that's correct, but not to the level and the quality of Disneyland Paris. And so World Premiere Plaza is where that kind of comes together for the whole resort. And so they reimagined and are paying homage to the original front lot of the theme park that we mentioned earlier in the episode. You're entering the studios, and then you enter the movie premiere and you enter the movies, right? That little detail, that kind of the steps of entry to the park are going to remain the same, and I'm so thankful for that. Except for they've just kind of jazzed it up a little bit. They've kind of made it glitzy. It's themed to glitzy Hollywood, fancy restaurants, architecture, showbiz, Broadway shows. Instead of it being like an active movie studio, now it's like you're enjoying the movie as like a VIP almost. It's my best way of putting that. I feel like they took that stereotypical studio look away, and now they just made it like a higher end, fancy rendition. Really nice finishes, focuses on shows, aesthetics, little gardens. The Walt statue that was at the park is now in a beautiful garden with a really nice backdrop. Instead of just looking at the show building of like a sound stage, now you actually have like a really nice little like theater entryway, exitway that they're doing. Like I said, they added new gardens, topiaries, lighting, pathways to existing areas of what used to previously kind of be the studio theme. And so even though that some of the show buildings remain and some of the sound stages remain, it doesn't feel to me at all like a studio park anymore, which is kind of nice. And then they, as you enter the front gates, there's probably going to be a new logo that's going to say, Disney Adventure World. That's what I've seen in the concepts from Imagineering, but as of right now, everything is blank. They took they stripped everything of its Disney, Walt Disney Studios naming already, which is kind of nice. So I don't exactly know what it's going to look like yet. Maybe it's a little bit weird that you show up to a studio-themed little lot that says Disney Adventure World, but that's the name of the park. I really don't know what they're going to do with that yet. But as of right now, it's all kind of blank, and I hate that.
The Earful Tower, I feel like it's obvious. The obvious answer is that they're going to put Disney Adventure World on the Earful Tower, their little water tower.
That's what it has in the concept, yeah.
If you're not familiar, it's the water tower with ears. Disney's Hollywood Studios used to have one as well. It was demolished as they developed the Toy Story area out of the tram tour setup. But now I feel like they might just leave it be. I think it looks very sophisticated, despite being also very whimsical for it to just be blank. And it could also be a little... I would almost expect them to have left it alone, because it could be kind of confusing. Because I don't know if Adventure World is the right name for something that's being pasted on a water tower that's iconic film. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. But it looks cute either way, as long as they're keeping it.
Yeah. One final thing of World Premiere Plaza is that you kind of enter in the what now is the front lot, and then when you exit, there's still a quite large zone that is the World Premiere Plaza because it has all the shows on it. But really, that's what's going to connect. Then it's kind of one of those things where they call Adventure Way a zone because it connects a bunch of lands. This is just kind of a zone like that too because it connects Adventurers Campus, Worlds of Frozen, and then Adventure Way into one. But it is a pretty substantial area because it does have rides and stuff.
And I love the theme. It's got a great theme. Even though Adventure Way's theme is a bit more mild in the sense that it's just more of a aesthetic. It's French and it's pretty. The entrance area, World Premiere, is Hollywood. It is still, that is the theme. It's very obvious, and it has a lot of motifs and a lot of things going for it that reinforce that theme. It's still very much a strong flavor. In fact, I think it's even better. I think it looks better than it ever has.
Oh, I totally agree. Because now it just feels to me like the Hollywood that it's fancy Hollywood, not backstage Hollywood. Yeah. Does that make sense? It's okay, we're we are important people going to see productions and high-end shows, and it feels very glitzy, throw a couple string lights up and
the valleys,
and some trees,
and
it works. Yeah, it really is beautiful. I think it makes me feel like the park's quality is just elevated by it. It just feels kind of high end now, which is so weird to say about that park.
That's not a word that I would have used to describe that. Because Studio One always looked very cute, but it was also very Disney's California Adventure 1.0. And the left side of it, which is the side that they've kept pretty much the same, had the nice storefronts and facades and all the details. They changed some of it toward the back. They gave it another storefront upgrade instead of the tire shop theme on the back there. But then the right side of it, which is the very tired out trope of the studio backlot restaurant experience where you're backstage and it's supposed to be novel and funny and cute, but really it's just cheap looking. And so that was the part of Studio One that they took down practically to the dirt and started over. And it looks unbelievable. The beautiful indoor garden, literally trees and terrace and lights and beautiful embellishments. It's just gorgeous, and it really does a nice job of supporting the left side of the area that is the part that they kept, the part that always looked good. It's just I don't even know how to explain it. I intellectually I knew that they had done this to the inside of Studio One to transform it into World Premiere, and then we walked in there, and I was like, oh my god, this looks so nice. I was bowled over by how good the transformation was. They knew exactly where to put the changes, where exactly to put the money and making decisions with this, because it is just so obvious how the improvements were made and how good they are. It's very clear, what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it and how they wanted it to look when it was done. So it was very impressive. And you poke out and you've got you're flanked with the show venues. And then you have the rides in the foreground. You have Tower of Terror, which I will always love that their Tower of Terror is like right in the middle of the action. There is something to be said for the way that it's set in the back of all of the other
like
parks.
Their castle. It's like in the center of the
park.
But
I just always love, and the reveal is intact, even though they've changed the approach to it. But I love popping out of Studio One and Tower of Terror is just like right there in your face. I feel like it's a very dramatic and satisfying reveal. And then you have all the little like Art Deco shops and little terraces and areas in front of the ride that reaffirming the Hollywood theme, and they've added to it too. They're like really running with that. They've like old Hollywood, new Hollywood, like it's 100 years of Hollywood being referenced throughout this area. All the way to the right in the little animation corner, they have the Les Tapis Volants, the flying carpets over Agrabah, which is I was reading on the park, and like the reason it's a magic carpet Dumbo ride, but instead of like the Orlando one or the one in Tokyo, it's themed to filmmaking. And it's sort of like the joke is that they're treating the animated characters like they're actors acting in movies, and it's like instead of it being animated, it's like filmmaking, except the filmmakers in the world, it's all cartoons and stuff. So Genie is the director of a film, and you're like acting in, they're shooting a scene with the magic carpet. It's a very funny, very specific theme to this park that I love. And I'm glad they're still keeping it, because that is the only attraction in the park that is still the same basic identity that it had when the park opened. So like for better or for worse, you get one little vestige of the 2002 era park where everything else has been completely transformed. And then for shows, you have Together, a Pixar musical adventure, which is dynamite. That's the best live show I've ever seen at a theme park, except for maybe Rhythm of the Pride Lands, which is also at Disneyland Paris. You have Mickey and the Magician, fabulous. Mickey and Friends.
Another super high quality Broadway production show.
Yes.
It was very good.
Frozen, a musical invitation, which is in the animation building. It's like right just to your right. It's opposite of Tower of Terror, basically, when you walk in. Stitch Live, which is in Studio D, and also Disney Junior Dream Factory. That's also in Studio D, along with the Mickey Mouse meet and greet. There's a lot of great shows here. Oh, and then the Alice in Wonderland show, which is sort of in the entrance. It's sort of in world premiere, but you have to take this funky little snaky walkway between Adventure Way and Tower of Terror to get to it. So that's a little bit of a...
Yeah, and the park map, it's a little bit of a murky one.
That one's...
I'm surprised it hasn't been made into an adventure stunt show yet.
That one might be in the same
I feel like it's coming.
bin as Cars Road Trip, where I think it might just be a bit of a placeholder. That theater has been there since 2002. It's had a few different shows. It was famously opened as Lights, Motors, Action, which Orlando people might remember as a show that came over to Hollywood Studios. And it was advertised as being a show that came from Disneyland Paris. That was like part of the marketing for that. And then inside the area, so it's this is a huge area. It's a great area. I love that the whole thing is one area. The ticketing area that's pretty cohesive, and too. It's very cohesive. It's wonderful. I love it. And it's got two rides. It's got the ride. It's got Tower of Terror. It's got the weenie of the park, and it's got all these shows. And then it's got some dining stuff. It's got, shop out in the front. It's got, inside World Premiere Searchlight, Donuts and Coffee, Hollywood Gardens Restaurant, Mickey's of Hollywood Boutique. And then you have, Mickey's of Hollywood also outside in World Premiere, Tower Hotel Gifts, Animation Boutique, and then the Walt Disney Studios store, which is in before you walk into Studio One. And I hope they keep the name of that store the same. I hope it's still Walt Disney Studios store, because it would be a nice homage to the original name of the park. I think since that little plaza is still themed, it's the last part of the park that will be themed to like being backstage in the studio. I hope they kind of keep it because it's cute. And then we have lots of food and beverage stuff under construction and location. You brought up a good point earlier when we were putting this episode together, that Disneyland Paris doesn't really do like the mobile moving drag and drop food and beverage carts that you'll see around. Disney is big
at pretty much all other resorts. Yeah,
they're big on, Disney's always been big on like optimizing for capacity. They don't want to have a bunch of closed venues on low crowd days. Not that they have those anymore, but I think to combat the idea of having closed permanent buildings, they would rather just have temporary drink and snack carts that they can move in and out of the park at will. But Paris doesn't really do that. And your point with them being not very weather friendly and not like appropriate for cast members to be standing outside in the elements constantly is a really good point. So when Disneyland Paris adds food and beverage infrastructure, it is really infrastructure. It's actual infrastructure. So they're building little kiosks and things, little booths. There's like a bunch of,
they do a lot of them
so
too.
many.
Like there's a lot of them.
There's like over a dozen just of these little booths that are being built for Adventure World. And two of them are in the existing world premiere area. One on the Pixar side and one on the other side there. One with a Mickey Mouse motif, one with Woody.
Yeah, they're kind of like themed to small
like
little sound
stages. They're adorable.
Yeah, and they are right in front of the two big sound stages that house Pixar and Mickey and the Magician. And first I was like, is that really necessary? But it beats doing the food truck thing, which I feel like especially in this park, because it was always studio themed, they would use kind of like, backlot food truck as like kind of like an easy way to have cast member perspective on the elements and still a thematic food location. But now the infrastructure is a lot more permanent. And we're going to talk about Adventure Bay and Adventure Way next, and they're adding a lot of permanent food and beverage infrastructure in there. It's amazing to see it all come together, and seeing like terraces being built. They're gonna go for, like I mentioned earlier in the episode, kind of the Epcot thing now, having a giant lake and waterways, and then having foods and drinks and kind of like an atmospheric thing. And I think it's going to work out really well for them. So next we're going to just talk about the last remaining zone of the park, which again, I believe could have been also called the land if they really wanted to, or a world, but Adventure Way. So this is going to be a walkway, and it's going to be connecting the entrance zone of World Premiere Plaza we just discussed, and it's going to connect all the worlds around the park. So pretty much everything plugs into Adventure Way. It's amazing, actually, to think about that. That's the park having such a cohesive layout going forward is it's crazy to consider. So in the middle of that, a giant circle, the end of the park, is Adventure Bay, and I think it's a clever name, but it's not an actual area. It's just the name of the water, body of water, and that's going to be home to a new nighttime spectacular. It's going to be called Disney Cascade of Lights, which we'll talk about in just a little bit.
There's going to be a lot of entertainment here. This is the whole point of this expansion is really about giving this park the things that it doesn't already have. If you're wondering, like, why isn't there a big e-ticket ride that is ushering in this era of the new park and the new branding, it's like, well, the park already has a good number of e-tickets and rides. It's never like as for all the problems that this park has had, having rides was never the biggest problem. Rides are easy. Like this park is a great example of how you can have a park with a great roster that doesn't really feel like that great of a park. Everything at Studios has always looked pretty good on paper, especially once they got things like Ratatouille and Toy Story Tower of Terror. Once they had a semi-fleshed out roster, it was like, okay, like it's a decent park. But you can have a lot of rides and still not feel like there's a lot going on in a park, just like how you can have a massive park with not that many rides and still feel like there's a lot of substance there. And that's what Adventure Way is really serving, is putting a lot of much needed identity and space and midway, and making this park more than just a collection of rides hastily strung together by pathways that and areas that are comfortably just backstage and studio themed, instead of like really putting in the work and having approaches to these attractions and connecting them all in their own little themed ways. But down Adventure Way, we have, for entertainment, just the entertainment, we have Mickey and Minnie meet and greet on the banks of Adventure Bay. We have Minnie's marching band, which will be conducted down Adventure Way and around the lake. And then there's a large meet and greet area just to the left of Adventure Way once you walk in on kind of on the Tower of Terror side. I cannot stress enough how significant meet and greet infrastructure is to Disneyland Paris. If you think that Walt Disney World is crazy when it comes to like princess meet and greets and stuff, Disneyland Paris takes it to another level. It's not quite as hysterical as like some of the Japan stuff, but it's wild. Like it's amazing to me how passionate the French and the general European audiences are about meet and greets. Like when you rope drop Disneyland Paris, you have the rides to yourself because everybody rope drop the meet and greets. That is what they do. So I feel like half of the new attractions opening with Adventure World is really just like meet and greet related, and that's a big deal for them. Like that is, I mean, it's huge for them.
It's even a selling point. Like when you look at the extra magic time, so Disneyland Paris is, I think, the best extra magic time system and of all the parks. Like you get an entire hour early for both parks, and if you're the highest tier of annual passes, which is first why we buy the highest tier of annual pass, you get an entire hour early. And one of the things that market the highest or the most with extra magic time is the fact that you can take your little passport and go meet all the characters before the park opens. And sure enough, you get in there, people start lining up Winnie the Pooh right away, Stitch right away. Like people just line it up right away. A few minutes later, it's 8 in the damn morning. The characters are out and about. We were over here just chilling, waiting for Indiana Jones to open because the park wasn't open yet. And there's just characters moving around. Donald Duck's ready to meet people, take photos, do the passport thing. Like that is a big marketing thing for them, is the characters, and it's gotten really, really popular. So having a lot of meet and greet infrastructure, especially at this gate, it's important because it doesn't really have that kind of infrastructure. There's a bunch of little gazebos and meeting spots all over Disneyland, because Disneyland, like the park itself, has so much space to do that, but there never really has been an opportunity for that at this gate. And so I'm excited for them to have now finally the space to do little meet and greets everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also more shopping coming to Adventure Way. This park's always been really good about shopping because they've had the big studio store out front of Studio One, and then also Mickey's studio store inside Studio One. But I love to shop. More shopping is always good. Their Tower of Terror is getting its exit store finally. All of the other Tower of Terrors exit into a gift shop. For some reason, this one was deprived of it. Oh, wait, no, this one does have a gift shop.
No, this one.
Wait, what is this?
It's getting a second gift shop.
Oh, it's on the other side. Okay.
Yeah. So they're getting a second gift shop.
Oh, got you. I was going to say, I was like, this one. Yeah. I'm like, why doesn't this one have a gift shop? And I was like, wait a minute, it does. We just walk through it really quickly. So I don't think about it being there. But yeah, this one, it's not that big, but yeah, they have an exit gift shop. So this one's getting another. Okay, so it's on the. I see. Okay. Got you. And then there's going to be a shop in front of the Tangled ride, which has a French name that makes me laugh, and I don't know why, and I can't pronounce it. I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
I'm talking about it a bit. Yeah.
And then Worlds of Pixar store next to. Oh, okay. So yeah, so on the Adventure Bay side of. Okay. I'm so not used to picturing the way that this park is going to look when it's open, like the way the midways are connecting to each other. Like when I think of something being in Pixar, Worlds of Pixar, or like near Tower of Terror, it's so different in my mind than like how it's actually going to be when the park is open, because I keep forgetting, like, wow, we have a central nervous system for this park again. Like, it's got a midway, a spine all the way up the center instead of being just like a bunch of random little outlets.
Yeah, so that boutique you just mentioned is going to be kind of nestled between current Cars Road Trip and the Regal View restaurant. And so it's going to be kind of like, that's going to be a new major entrance for Worlds of Pixar.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the other entrance to it, we'll discuss a little bit, it's more like a Toy Story entrance. So, it'll have a major gift shop. I'm a little bit surprised by them adding a gift shop over by Tower Terror. I don't know why exactly they didn't do that. But I think it's because they really wanted to make Tower Terror be in this tiny little village. Like it's very Hollywood, it's very Art Deco, it's very California, and it's kind of like its own corner of that World Premiere Plaza. And I think they just wanted to expand that a little bit. And I'm glad. I mean, I love that they're adding to that theme.
And then lots of food and beverage. This is where, like, you know how you brought up like they're kind of doing a little bit of an Epcot thing here. This is where the Epcot comparisons continue beyond just having the big lagoon in the center. There's going to be 3 kiosks lined up near World of Frozen, selling various food items. A chalet that will serve champagne to guests. I think you mean serve.
Yeah,
it's just a typo. It's okay. Champagne around Adventure Bay, obviously. More food establishments coming around Adventure Bay. There's going to be cocktails on tap, pastries, brioche sandwiches. I know there's a place that's going to be doing hot dogs. I think that's further down on the list. Let's see. They definitely want that adult atmosphere, like the grazing Disney adult with like $30 worth of food in each hand. Like, I think that's what they're going for, and I think that's going to be great. I love that for them.
Yeah, and even if you look at the models that they have released, you can really sense that there's a lot of like little stores and little terraces and little kiosks and chalets all around. I almost called it a World Showcase. Adventure Bay, point in case, is that the whole point is that I think they want people to spend a lot of time here at night. They're going to do the nighttime show. There's nice restaurants. There's meet and greets. There's music. I think it's really supposed to be a place to hang out. And that's kind of where, like Alex said, the Epcot thing comes back in, because that kind of concept for Disney Paris is kind of rare. Like, Disney Paris is one of the parks where it feels a little bit quieter at night. And I'm glad to see that this will potentially really keep this park very lively at night, because I will say Park Disneyland can stay pretty busy because the nighttime show and the kids and whatnot. But this park really kind of drains out. Like, you walk around here at night, it's never really that busy. I mean, you can even get a crush at night without waiting very long. So now having two parks where it's really like a nighttime atmosphere, I think it's exactly what Disney wants. I think people, they want Disney to stay late. They want people to eat dinner there. They want people to spend money on food and beverage. They want them to spend the entire day at the park. And by having a really chill atmosphere, a nice landscaping and places to sit and have a glass of wine, that's definitely going to resonate with the audience. I am going to be part of that. It's going to be great. It's going to be cute. One of the biggest restaurants that they have on resort is going to be the Regal View restaurant, and this is going to sit on Adventure Way of facing Frozen, of course with Adventure Bay in the middle of that. And this is going to be, surprisingly enough, a princess character dining restaurant, so there will be a little bit on the higher end of pricing, but I'm kind of glad that the princesses are making their way over here. First, I was really confused why I did that. I remember texting Alex and thinking, like, why is it so princess focused for a park that's not the main castle? But kind of like a Fantasy Springs kind of brought the princess thing in a Art Nouveau way to Disney Sea. This is like the kind of a similar thing. Like, it's Art Nouveau. It's very relaxed. It's gardens. It's aesthetic. And the theme of Regal View Restaurant that is like, it's a retreat for princesses. It's like a retreat. It's their day off. They're just relaxing on the lake, and that's kind of the vibe that they're going for. I'm not mad about it. I'm really not a princess person. I couldn't even tell you who is who when you show me a picture of the princesses, except for Mulan and, like, Mulan and Tiana maybe. But I don't really care about princesses, but I'm still kind of excited for this because it's a really important aspect, and it's going to elevate the quality of the park. They're going with some really expensive details. The serveware, the plates, all that is hand drawn, hand painted by Royal Delft, which is the company that does all the Dutch royal family's servingware, which is kind of a cool proud moment as a Dutchie, because that's like Delft Blauw, the style is already like kind of distinct Dutch culture, and now that they're using that and getting really high quality porcelain items for the restaurant that are made by this company, it's really cool. Immediately in my head, I'm like, oh my god, this park is suddenly going to turn to a fancy park, because that's not stuff I expected from a theme park, so that's kind of exciting. And then this will also be the first in-park lounge for Disneyland Paris as a resort. They have lounges all around the actual resorts, like the hotels, but this will be the first time they're going to have a lounge inside the park, if I am not mistaken. And that is going to be the Royal View Lounge, which will, cocktails, bar, hors d'oeuvres, that kind of thing. Really, really nice. I look forward to sitting. I probably will not be going to Regal View Restaurant right away. I'm not a character dining person personally, but the lounge sounds right up my alley.
We're going to be rope dropping the lounge.
I'm sure we'll find ourselves at the lounge. And then a couple of other major restaurants that aren't just food kiosks and walk-up stands is there's the La Terrasse Panoramique, which is going to be a terrace-themed restaurant that sits on Adventure Bay. That also, of course, is indoor dining because it's Paris, but it's going to have bread bowls and New York-style rolls. I don't even know what a New York roll is, but that's what they're going to serve. And this will also have views of the nighttime show from the terrace, which is kind of cool. Then there's Café Luminosity, which is another major restaurant that will probably also have outdoor seating. This is going to be a hot dog concept restaurant with some signature recipes, and they're going to have cinnamon buns, which is kind of exciting. I don't know why. I just think it's a funny combination.
Very Americana.
For something that's doing a Parisian Art Nouveau. And another cool thing is this restaurant's gonna have like a tower on top of it, but really that tower is not just thematic. It's actually the control booth for the shows they're gonna be doing on the lagoon. So I think it's kind of neat. And then Adventure Bay, or Adventure Way, I should say, will be home to a variety of gardens and entertainment venues and meet and greet spaces that are gonna line the main kind of street that goes all the way to Adventure Bay. It's actually quite a long street, so Adventure Way, when it starts, it has to kind of surpass the entire current existing park to go to like the new second half of the park to create in the back. And along the way, there's going to be a variety of gardens on either side, and I think I love this concept because it's really going to bring that garden and park vibe that I think I'm missing so much, like I said, at Epic Universe. Even though Epic Universe does it okay, I think, and I already know from what I've seen at the park, it's going to really look really clean and aesthetically pleasing. One of the gardens is going to be gazebo gardens, a couple of gazebos where they're going to be meet and greets. There's going to be little musical performances. They're kind of bringing that music festival thing they did at the main gate last year, and they're going to bring it in kind of into Adventure World by doing lots of small little music venues and meet and greets. And like Alex mentioned earlier, the marching band is coming. And this will be its own little garden with chrome statues of Disney and Pixar characters. Then there's another garden across the way from that. It's the Toy Story Gardens. This will have topiaries themed to toys and characters from Toy Story. And it's going to have also some larger statues that will kind of transition you into Toy Story Playland. So as you walk through the little gardens, it's all matching the Adventure Way aesthetic. But then at the end of that, you'll have your string lights, your Christmas light theming. You'll have your little wooden stick figure thingies that we all know from Toy Story Lands. And of course, Woody and Jessie, I think, are the two characters that will be at the entrance to Toy Story Playland from this angle, which will bring Toy Story Playland to like 3 or 4 different entrances around its little area. It's kind of cute. And then the Tangled Gardens will be home to Réponse Tangled Spin, which will be...
That's what it is.
Réponse.
Everybody's like, who's Réponse? It's like, it's Rapunzel. It's Tangled.
And their garden's really cute. It's going to have a little... like a little tiny lagoon. What do you call that? Kind of like a pond, I guess. Maybe a Rijpond. Not kidding. And so that's going to have also a meet and greet space, and it's all kind of in the purple aesthetic, but of course lots of greenery. And then the Tangled Spin Ride is like that Lantern Festival themed spinning ride that they'll have, and it's going to have a little boutique, so that's going to be pretty significant garden. And then across from that, there's going to be an Up garden, themed to the Pixar franchise Up, and it's going to have a spinning, like a swing ride, kind of like a pretty standard fair ride that we've also seen at Paradise Gardens at Disney California Adventure. But it's gonna, of course, have the Art Nouveau aesthetic. And then there's another little hub garden before you actually get to the lake. So there's actually like there's like 4 or 5 different gardens going on that are lined up along Adventure Way on your way to Adventure Bay. And I can't understate this enough. That whole aesthetic is so pretty. We already saw some of the lighting being tested. I really look forward to this. It's going to really be such a different feel. That's really going to be, I think, the biggest driver that's going to make it feel no longer like a studio park. Because you can kind of course, once you've seen it as a studio park, it's hard to unsee it.
Yeah.
But having all of this greenery and having it be the gardens to what's the main street next door, I think it's the first time ever I think a Disney park has really been themed almost to like modern gardens, like art, that whole the aesthetic doesn't exist. I always kind of wish Epcot did that. I always feel like Epcot could be like Gardens by the Bay in Singapore, could be a bunch of art installations and all that. And they kind of got better at it when they added that new hub at Epcot, but it's still an American version of that. It's kind of lower denominator stuff. Yeah. What's coming here to Adventure World is going to be pretty highbrow. It's going to be very European. It's going to be, it feels higher quality, the flooring, the embellishments, the lanterns, the lighting. I'm excited for it.
I'm curious what the timeline is for the Up garden, because we rode the parachutes earlier this week to get a view of how things are coming along, and Up is still just a big hole in the ground. But a zero.
Yeah, but I will say I saw some photos of it from today, and construction is vertical. It's still listed in the Disney Parks blog as being a part of the opening of Adventure World. So I think maybe they're holding on to make sure it's actually open before they throw more info on the app about it. But I don't see a reason for this ride to be delayed.
You can build that in a day. It's going to be really cute anyway. I just hope that it's ready in time. If not, it'll be ready for the summer probably. But it's still a great little fleshing out addition. Little C-ticket rides are kind of the secret to success in some of these gates. Nobody wants to build these rides and market them as new attractions, but when you flesh your park out with them, they make a big difference in the overall experience. It's very the Fantasyland rides, the little, what I call the C-ticket trio of Dumbo, Teacups, and Carousel. That stuff's really important for the overall park ecosystem, even though they're not that spectacular or that marketable or that exciting. They're really important, especially for parks when you're doing these major expansions, and it's an opportunity to do this kind of stuff and not have to carry the weight of it being a new ride that will be a victim of comparison and overhype because it's a new attraction by itself. I think the focal point for Adventure Way and its various attractions will be the nighttime show. This is Disney Cascade of Lights. It's Disney's most technologically advanced nighttime show. It's so the max. I see.
So it uses a lot of drones, 379 drones to be exact, and it's in order to be able to operate this in all weather conditions, because drones, of course, are not really weather friendly, and Paris is not really weather friendly either, is that they're going to actually keep the drones at a very low height. It's going to be between 20 and 45 meters in max height, which the cool thing is it's going to be right in your face when you're standing around the lagoon. Another reason that's going to be right in your face is because these are actually the first ever aquatic drones, so they can float on the water, they can crash into the water if something is wrong. They are water resistant, so they can run in the water, they can run through fountains, but also they can float. So there's going to be a set of drones that are going to be floating around the lagoon as part of a scene and take off out of the lagoon. But it's going to be really spectacular. It's something that's never been done before in a public display, and this is going to be the first ever show that anyone will be able to see where it does that. And these new drones, the new technology behind them, they're smaller drones. They have faster and more reliable movement, so they can program these drone shows in the lake that everyone stands around. They're going to be close to your face, and they're going to be surrounded by fireworks on this lake. So they're much more maneuverable, and the lighting on them it's much brighter. So I think what that means is that despite the drones being much closer to the audience, you won't actually really be able to see the drones because the lights are more distracting. You know, like when you usually look at a drone show, drones are very far away. And so you won't never really have to worry about being able to see the fact that they're drones. But when they're going to be so close to your face, maybe that will be more of a concern. But it sounds like they're just smaller and they have better lights. So to me, it sounds like they really put a lot of money into it. It's supposedly really one of the biggest things that they've ever done. And so I guess we cannot discount that. And despite maybe Frozen being the only major big e-ticket ride they're getting, which some people wouldn't even say it's e-ticket. I will say it's e-ticket. The drone show, I think, the drone and fireworks show will be a really big selling point, and it was definitely a big focus for them. The show will be about 60 minutes long, and it'll have 4 barges that kind of get placed into position, almost like Epcot style now, where they like float them in about 2 hours prior to the showtime, and then they plug them all in together, and it makes for like a fountain firework laser barge show machine. That's going to be sitting in the middle of the lake.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm very impressed with how they'll be going about all of this. At the end of the last show of the night, I guess. Well, they might do it. Are they going to do it twice in one night? Do you think?
Yeah, there may be several. Like maybe like in the winter during busy season, because it's not as big as of a show as doing the castle shows, and even they do sometimes do 2 shows on those too.
But yeah, in any case, at the end of the last show, assuming that there's multiple shows, the barges will move out right away so that the lake will continue to look pretty for the rest of the evening. Aesthetic. There's tiered viewing areas along Adventure Bay. Visible. It's also visible from the various dining terraces at La Terrasse Panoramique and Regal View Restaurant. And the franchises that will be represented in the show include Moana, Hercules, Zootopia, Marvel, Mulan, My Girl, Up, and various other franchises. And I'm sure there will be more franchises added and shuffled around as time goes on.
And so that's kind of what Adventure World will look like when it opens officially on March 29th. And I'm amazed that we were able to talk about this for so long. It really wasn't our intention. But we have to discuss what's next, because one of Disneyland Paris' largest expansions is actually yet to come, because they're adding one of the largest rides ever made for the resort, could potentially be the largest ride ever made for the resort, and that is the new Lion King attraction. It's already actively under construction. Construction's already vertical. We saw them working on it just 2 days ago. So there's going to be a new land next to the World of Frozen, between Avengers Campus and the World of Frozen, and that's going to be the Pride Lands. And of course, that is the new Lion King themed land that will house the Lion King ride. And this is going to be kind of a ride, kind of think of like Splash Mountain, but maybe like on a little bit of a larger scope, with 3 across boats. And it's going to be quite spectacular. I'm not going to lie. Like when you look at the lake, you're going to kind of have this view of several mountaintops going forward in the future, and maybe even a third mountaintop if they do like a mountain thing for another potential expansion. Which we'll discuss in just a minute. But anyway, so that is going to be the Pride Lands, and they actually built a test drop on site. We actually drove by it. It was a couple of days ago. It was
you
really
guys,
cool to
we
see.
were fangirling. We were in the back of the taxi, like squealing, because we saw the drop.
Because
like, oh my God!
we usually don't even get to Val d'Europe by taking the back roads, but we took the back roads this time, and you could see on the back of the resort they have a literal drop built that they test the boats on, because it's a new ride system that they've developed, and so that's going to be used for this ride. And the overall structure of the ride is going to be about 120 feet tall, so it'll be very noticeable from within the park. And that's going to be Pride Rock, as you know, as this big mountainy kind of look that it's going to get. And I think it's going to be very eye catching being around Adventure Bay.
All right, it's going to have 3 drops. The first 2 are indoor. the final drop, the focal point finale drop, will be 52 feet tall. In the tradition of Splash Mountain, of course. The ride will use mostly physical sets and media such as animatronics. The new land will be situated between Avengers Campus and World of Frozen, and there will be restaurants and shops and entertainment for this area. Sean and I have hypothesized if there was going to be a permanent dedicated theater for Rhythms of the Pride Lands, which has been shown in the Frontierland Theater since 2021.
It's practically built for
but
it.
That theater was
Adventure,
basically built
yeah.
for it too. It's just that I wish that and this isn't practical really, but I wish there was like a Frontierland themed show that was in the Frontier Theater and not like a Lion King show. But
the only reason I don't expect them to move Lion King over to this park is because Rhythms of the Pride Land is a very... First of all, there's already a lot of shows this park, right? Which wouldn't actually not be enough reason for me to not have to move it over. But one of the biggest things about Rhythms of Pride Lands is it's a very artsy, it's African, it has African traditional dancing, African traditional clothing. It is a very, very artsy and very highbrow rendition of the music from the movie, music from the Broadway musical, and music from the follow-up album that has unique music just in like an African style for The Lion King because it was so popular. They combine all that into one of the best stage shows of any theme park in the world. Rhythms of the Pride Lands is so phenomenal, but it is a complete clash with the 1994 animated cute little Simba. I think they're just two very different styles of The Lion King story.
Right.
And I don't know if throwing them next to each other would work for me.
Yeah.
Do I want to come from like one of the most artistic pieces of music and performance I've ever seen and then have it be lumped in with the 1994 animated version of The Land? I just don't think it's going to go that well together.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Who knows? They could put it in there. Yeah. And then there's one more land that is potentially coming to Disney Adventure World. So there's a rumored Avatar Land, and this Avatar Land will be unique, and it will be different from the Florida and California one. So California's getting a way of water kind of land. And then, of course, Florida has, based on the original movie, the Valley of Mara, which, it all takes place on Pandora, the planet the movies take place on. So France, turns out, is one of the largest Avatar markets in the world. And what I mean by that is that for the size of the country, the last two Avatar movies have performed incredibly well. And the same goes, of course, to other neighboring countries. It's a pretty popular movie franchise in Europe and really all over the world. But this resort is just a perfect contender for that because the French love Avatar. And the idea of course, there's 5 Avatar movies in the making. The third one is about to release. By the time this comes out, you may have already watched it. And so there is a lot of room for a really awesome potential new land.
The plot that was originally meant for Star Wars was rumored to be going to Lion King or Avatar. Obviously, Lion King got the spot. And I think that makes sense because it's just going to be such a slam dunk. Obviously, Avatar will be great too, but I can see why. I think it's obvious to the average guest and Disney fan why finally giving Lion King a ride took precedence over doing a third Avatar area. But yeah, just the rumors have been so loud and so constant for so long. I feel like it's kind of a shoo-in. And then finally we got the clue that we needed to know that like Disney was really probably going to make this happen. The show barges for the Disney Cascade of Lights show are all labeled. They're like in a cross formation, like a north-south, almost like a rose, like a compass rose, which is the iconography for the park, the compass rose. They're so the 4 arms for the Cascade of Lights show setup are labeled after the themed area that they're pointing to. So like the north one points to Frozen. The south one points to Toy Story Land, so it's named after RC Racer, and then you have one pointing to Lion King, so it's named after what I think it's like Simba. So you have like,
I think it at least has Lion King or Lion.
Or Lion. Yeah, we have like, or it's like, is the Frozen one? Is it like Elsa, or is it just or Olaf or
I think
something?
it's Frozen, Lion, Eraser, and
then
then
Navi, and which was like that. Once that came out, it was like, oh my god, like it's happening, it's here, it's going. This would be on the expansion plot that is currently occupied by Cars Road Trip. Like we mentioned earlier, Cars Road Trip is probably not part of the 10-year plan.
Not just Cars Road Trip, it's also like another whole plot next to it.
Mm-hmm.
It has the potential to be the largest land in the park, which it sounds right now from the rumors and what we've been hearing down the rumor mill, it sounds like it could be potentially the largest area in the park, is not a resort. And there's currently a rumor that it may have a boat ride in the same fashion of Pirates of the Caribbean in Shanghai. So that boat ride system, which is also coming to Disney California Adventure for their Way of Water / adventure boat ride. Potentially it could be the same boat ride. Maybe it could be a little bit smaller, but same technology. It could be themed to Fire and Ash or whatever other movie is coming out. We don't exactly know the details on that, of course, but I think Way of Water will make a lot of sense. I mean, they already created these underwater animatronics that they've created, like fish that can swim around, and there's animatronic fish. Imagine like one of those fish cat toys, the cats have to play with, they just wiggle their tail around. I'm imagining those underwater. Like, could you imagine being in this boat ride and like looking down at the water and there's like fish swimming around and there's animatronic fish? That's the coolest thing in the world. I'm hoping it's happening, and I'm hoping it's happening in Paris. But then there's also the rumor that the second ride will be a major roller coaster, an Avatar-themed roller coaster. And that's the first time I heard that rumor. I had previously heard walkthroughs, submarine rides. I had never heard of an Avatar roller coaster, but that rumor is rumoring and she's swirling. And I think the potential of having two rides being a major Avatar land in a market that loves Avatar, I think it'd be incredibly marketable. Between Lion King, Frozen, and Avatar, I mean, like, all of Europe is going to be like standing at those front gates because those are three massive franchises. I mean, Lion King is so big, especially in France. It's every European loves Lion King, and if the Lion King show is anything to go by, like, people will line up an hour before. Lion King is all that, and I think it was the easy choice to give them the only Lion King land ever made for Disney. And it would be, I think Avatar would have very similar interest. So that is kind of what is rumored for the future, what's happening in the future. Lion King is actually under construction, and Avatar may be under construction. And I hope they just announce something soon. I know they haven't even opened Adventure World yet, but I'm just so anxious to find
excited.
out
like, I'm so
what the
glad
expansion
that
plot may
they've
be.
announced Lion King and that it's happening and it's going to be soon. But I'm like, I'm so ready for more. I'm excited for more because I'm just so jazzed about this park. Obviously, we're very jazzed because we're almost 2 hours in, and I think we want to try to.
And we have still
see if we could.
We still have to hit some of these discussion points.
I mean, we have like some discussion topics. We kind of covered a lot of this stuff, but we'll wrap this up quick by saying, like, talking about the difference between this park as a relaunch versus other parks that have done major expansions. Things like Disney Seas, Disney Springs, or the Toy Story Land and Star Wars Land expansion for Hollywood Studios.
So what would you say is the purpose of the expansion?
This is all about just like midway space and giving the park, fleshing out an identity for the park and filling in gaps, giving the park things that a park needs to thrive, things like lots of restaurants and C-ticket rides and meet and greets and stuff that is not necessarily super marketable by itself, which I think is why studios struggled with fleshing these things out in the park, because it felt money was so tight. Every time they did something for studios, they're like, well, if we're going to spend money on the park, we have to advertise it. It has to be a ride. And that's how you get a park full of rides with nothing else. So that is really what makes this, it's like what justifies the whole rebranding and what makes this such a significant expansion beyond the fact that it's, not super ride heavy, not super ride focused. But that's important for this park because everything else that this park has ever had or gotten has been ride focused. Pretty much since the park opened, everything that they've ever gotten has been a ride that they can advertise, on a bus ad or in a commercial or something. And now the park is finally getting all of the fundamental nuances that make a great park.
No, I agree. Like we mentioned earlier, so there was God, how do I put this? There was maybe some commentary from people that the park was going to do all this and expand and get a rebrand, and all we really got out of it was like one boat ride and 2 flat rides. And while that's not inaccurate on paper, like, yeah, that's the 2 rides or the 3 rides that we're getting. That's not at all what Adventure World is about. Like I just mentioned, it's about the rebranding. It's about the added capacity. It's about the infrastructure. And because they're going to have like 14 new food and beverage locations, and they're going to have all these meet and greets and gardens to explore and all this extra capacity, I think that having just the Frozen ride at the end of the promenade, at the end of Adventure Way, I think it's just the right fit. It's far enough removed from everything else in the park that it's not going to feel like it's going to be bottlenecky. Like there's a lot of infrastructure because it's supposed to support, Lion King, World of Frozen, potential Avatar, and then there's still little plots in between to do even more projects if they so wish. And between the capacity that like Tower Terra has high capacity, the Tram Tour is high capacity, Adventures Assemble Flight Force is high capacity. The park can easily handle the influx of people that I'm expecting are coming. And since the park's always been, or the resort's always been about so much more than just rides, I really do think that it'll be just fine having Frozen there. I don't think it's going to be a capacity issue. I think it's a great addition. I think it's nice that they're going to ease people into the new park and the new identity by having just that major area as its own thing, and of course having the reimagined previous areas and having Adventure Way and whatnot. But I think it's just right that they're just adding that right now and then following it up with Lion King. And I think by the time that the crowds are starting to get crazy because of World of Frozen and people have the new name, and that's not going to be overnight. That's going to be a couple years until I think that the capacity or the attendance at the park is going to be up by 3, 4, 5 million. I expect high numbers, to be honest with you. I expect this to eventually become a park with those kind of numbers. But by the time that they're going to have that many people and they're going to need that extended capacity, Lion King will be ready. And Lion King is going to be the capacity monster of the resort. They're going to pump out boats with 9 to 12 riders, a couple of them at a time. It's going to be like a really big version of Splash Mountain, which is already a pretty decent capacity, right? I think by the time that the capacity of Frozen or the park will even be a concern, we already have Lion King open. And Frozen is not even that low capacity. Like, it's pretty decent capacity, isn't it? Like, when you think about it, like, it's not amazing, but for Disney Adventure World, I think it's just fine.
Yeah, I think it's solid. And also from an economical standpoint, it's hard to like justify the expense of doing everything that they're already doing and then like an e-ticket on top of it. We've already talked about how e-tickets are perfectly marketable on their own, which is why parks wind up with lots of e-tickets, but then not a lot of the other important stuff that flesh out a park. So with that in mind, it's like, well, they don't need another ride to market this. It's already perfectly marketable.
Also true. It's way smart to just open Lion King a few years later and have another.
If you're either going to go or you're not. Like to Adventure World, like you're either going to go to this park for the launch, for the rebranding, for the identity, or you're going to wait for the e-ticket. There's a good chance you're going to go and then come back for the e-ticket, and Disney knows that. So there's not really like a financial benefit to opening Lion King along with all of this stuff. But there is a huge benefit to announcing it and having that fresh in everybody's minds when they're going to Adventure World and they're seeing the construction and the coming attraction, and it's going to sell itself. So I think there's just a wise like economical marketing component to that too. If you're already doing Frozen, like you don't need anything else to get your return on investment, to get people through the door to do this. And then finally, I would end our the content side of our episode with a question. Since this park has like kind of touched every aspect of like the conventional second gate identity. It's a studio park. We've got a little bit of Epcot in there. Really, what it's turning into is sort of like the parks. This is going to be like their California Adventure type park, a sort of like potpourri of adventure motif attractions. But with that all in mind, like what does a third gate for Disneyland Paris look like? And I ask that because the third gate's already happening. They're laying the groundwork for it right now. We talked at the very beginning of the episode, all the way back 2 hours ago, about the contractual obligations of the resort. And those included not only the MGM Studios park, but a third gate eventually too. Only this time it will be less about obligations and more about the park
losing the land.
More about things like growing the resort and keeping itself competitive against things like Universal and maintaining their position as like the most attended tourist attraction in the continent, and that sort of thing. So all of that to say, like with Adventure World becoming what it is now, growing into itself in its new identity, what does a third gate look like for this resort?
Yeah, that is very difficult because when you have a gate like Adventure World, which I feel is it has an identity coming up, but it also is kind of like the mismatch park, like it's all sorts of stuff going on, which is also kind of what California Adventures turned into,
and Hollywood Studios too, for that matter.
And Hollywood Studios. I think we're going to see. I don't think it's going to be very necessarily original idea. I think this is actually going to. I think Adventure World is maybe a little bit more original than what we're going to see at the new gate, because I think Adventure World carved out a new kind of idea by using the park / garden aesthetic and making that kind of a thing, and having the sci-fi, the cartoon, and the studio side of the front part. I feel like that's actually kind of unique the way they're doing it. It's almost like a big Fantasy Springs expansion feel to it. However, what I expect from the third gate is I expect maybe kind of something along the lines of like an Animal Kingdom. Mm-hmm. And I don't expect it along the lines as in like they're going to have animals. I expect it to be along the lines of an aesthetic. I think they want to do big landscapes, because right now there's not like any big landscapes per se. And even that's hard to say, because Disneyland Paris of all the parks is the nicest landscapes. It has, Big Thunder Mountain sitting on a river, like it's its own thing. Adventureland is a giant Adventureland. So I have a hard time picturing what it could do, but I think that something like Animal Kingdom is so popular with the Europeans, have just like lush landscapes. I think Disney Sea is in that same boat. Like those two parks to me are like the lush, landscapey, really beautiful Disney parks. I'm hoping that's what they're going for next. I'm hoping they're going for just, maybe throwing an Everest kind of ride in there. Just really big landscapes. Yeah. But I don't know.
Big, naturalistic, photorealistic things like the Africa and Asia areas of Animal Kingdom, and some of the more natural-oriented Disney Sea areas, stuff like the Lost River Delta, I think would be the direction that they'll take this in. I think they're going to try to take you as far away from where you already are as possible. With that, I think so too. Europe, and like take you as far away from Europe as you can, but still,
because right now they've already got 2 parks that are perfect for IPs, and for like sci-fi stuff. Like if that Star Wars Discovery's Edge thing is going to happen, like a Star Wars land that sits behind Discovery Land. That, would be good here. They're already doing like the animation Lion King and stuff. I will say though, if you think about Avatar, maybe Avatar is a good fit for a new gate that's going to have big landscapes. I mean, it's a great fit for Animal Kingdom.
I ask this question because I don't have an answer. Because I don't know.
Yeah. I did always kind of envision Avatar being the anchor of a different gate, because Avatar is just such an anchor.
Avatar is
franchise.
Going to anchor another gate, but it's not going to anchor. I don't think it's going to anchor a third park in France. I think it's going to anchor a second park in Shanghai.
Anchor a second park in Shanghai. Yeah, I agree. Hands down. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question for the crowd. If you have any sort of imagination, or any sort of idea of what the third gate would look like in Paris, I'm really curious to
I
hear
wish
your
I could
thoughts
say
on
we
that.
were going to get another Disney Sea, but I feel like that's just the era of building these beautiful parks that are not bending over backwards for intellectual property tie-ins is just over. Like,
yeah, but if there's a caviar crowd, it's Paris. Like let's face it, Japan is pop culture central. Like I think it's almost inevitable that Disney Sea collapsed to the Kingdom of Arendelle. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it it was a matter of time in Japan. But I think the reason, for example, they're going with Pride Rock and stuff is that there's still, I think in Paris, really, there's still a drive for stuff that's not IP driven, and maybe even more so than any other resort. And so in that sense, I think if there is one park, one resort that could see a Disney Sea, also one resort where we're going to see 3 parks, period. We're not going to see 3 parks in Anaheim. We're not going to see 3 parks in Tokyo. We're not going to see 3 parks in Shanghai, I don't think. Like, I think this is the last resort that's going to be 3 parks because they planned on doing Disney World again. Yeah. Before they learned that was
Euro
really
Disney
not going to happen again.
It's the only resort other than Walt Disney World where the plan was to do more than 2 parks ever.
Like, they built Disney, like Euro Disney as a resort right away to be almost like a Disney World. They threw 7 hotels at an opening year. Like, that stuff was because in the 90s they thought it was always going to work out, and they learned. I mean, they got beat so hard by Disneyland Paris. They learned so quick that's not the way to do things, and that you don't need to build infrastructure for 3 or 4 theme parks. It's a lot of money on infrastructure without, capital being made directly off of it, because you don't make a lot of money on streets. You make a lot more money on attractions and restaurants and shops. So I think because they already had the agreement, and in order to not lose the land, they have to have a proposal by 2036 and then a park by 2040, something like that, whatever it was. I forgot the exact numbers, but their third park is either going to happen if they want to keep the resort and the land. And if they're looking 100 years into the future, it's in their best interest to have that land and have that space and have it developed. So I do think they're going to get a third gate, but I think this resort stands alone in that. Because it kind of inherited that problem from their own enthusiasm back in the day. Kind of how this park, Adventure World, it became about. Like, they inherited the problem early on.
It's crazy to think, looking back, if you're looking at Disney World in the late 80s, the early Eisner era Disney World where they were opening Hollywood Studios or MGM Studios, if you took a snapshot of what Disney World looked like in 1989, that is exactly the goal that they set themselves for Euro Disney, which is incredibly ambitious. At the time, they were literally saying, we have the largest theme park resort in the world by a huge margin. Because I know obviously Disney World is king now, but in 1989, with 2 water parks, 3 theme parks, and a dozen hotels, it was far and away the largest theme park resort in the world. Having a second gate was unheard of, let alone a third gate. So for them to have said in the late 80s, early 90s, if you look at Disney World, we're going to do this again in Paris, and it's going to be just as big. That was incredibly, incredibly lofty expectations, and a very impressive goal to set. But all of that to say that I'm really, really excited for the third gate, because whatever they're doing, it's going to be a surprise. Because I just don't think the answer is very clear.
But I do think it's going to be something naturalistic. If you look at the popularity of Paradise, for example, in Belgium, I mean, this thing is in the middle of nowhere and it gets millions of visitors. The landscapes they're building for Phantasialand, highly popular stuff. I think the Europeans just react well to that kind of theming and detail, to attention to detail and landscapes. And there's a lot they could still do. I mean, the European crowd is a crowd that likes thrill rides. I expect them to do eventually maybe a launch coaster, or there's also, now they're tapping into inverted coasters like Walt Disney World is doing. There's a lot of potential here. I mean, I am surprised by some of the things Disney World announced. I did not expect to ever see a Monsters Inc. area with a Monsters Inc. door suspended coaster. Who knows what's up their sleeve? Who knows how creative they can get? Maybe we're thinking completely incorrectly. Maybe they're going to go for a giant indoor theme park, because indoor theme parks do well
also
in Europe.
True.
Paris
Abu Dhabi's going to be an indoor park. That maybe that's going to be more of a clue than we're thinking.
Yeah, maybe they're going to be all right, great. Our third gate's going to be indoor, and I bet you it's going to make money, because on the weather is just not great a lot of the times. And you go and and the Europeans are used to it. They'll stand in the rain and switch back. They don't care. I don't care. But it's still a marketable thing to have a giant indoor Disney park. And I mean, how much of Disney's products are already indoor? All the rides are practically usually indoor. All you have to do is build your infrastructure indoor, and it works. So in fact, maybe that's what they'll do. who knows? It could be a good chance for Disney to do something really unique.
And it's funny because Disney has this, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, Disney almost built an indoor theme park in the 70s in St. Louis. Like, before they settled on Walt Disney World in Florida, the second park concept was a small indoor park that was going to consist of what would later grow into New Orleans area at Disneyland and Liberty Square at Magic Kingdom. And it was all gonna be enclosed in like a big arboretum because of the weather. So an indoor park,
if they're gonna do
would be amazing. It would be a very full circle.
If they're gonna do an indoor park, I just need my grid. I want a Tron world.
Yeah. Okay. Deal.
It's never happening. But, anyway, those are I think the two most obvious things they could do, like a Disney Sea Animal Kingdom kind of concepts with the unique landscapes. Assuming they're going to be different than anything I've already done, because Disney is kind of finally in the place where they don't really like cloning stuff anymore, which I'm really happy about. A lot of new concepts. Every park gets something new. Because Disney knows damn well that everyone that can afford to go to a Disney resort can afford to hop the pond and go to a Disney resort. So how are you going to get everyone to travel around? They're not going to travel around to about the same big ton amount or whatever. So I think it'll be something unique. Now the question is, when will we learn about it? I think once they have announced whatever that third land is around Adventure Bay, I think then we may get some hints at what's next, but that can still be very far away. And we were supposed to talk about our visit to the park, but we got to Disney Paris all the time. You can check it out on Facebook or Instagram. We post some stuff there. At this point, we're 2 hours and 15 minutes in, and I'm pretty sure nobody wants to hear us talk about Disney Paris any longer. So with that in mind, I think this would be a really great time to say goodbye. Do you agree? Is there anything you want to add?
I think you killed it. It's perfect.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys on the episode soon. Thank you for listening to Coast Kings Radio. Follow us on social media, and definitely make sure to leave us, hopefully, 5 stars on your favorite listening platform. And we'll catch you guys later with another exciting episode. What the topic is, we don't know yet. We'll see. All right, guys. Bye.